The air charged with a tangible tension as I faced Jonathan Burke in his dimly lit sanctuary. His sanctuary, a misnomer really, was more a fortress armed with occult symbols and ancient lore. Jonathan, a man whose soul was steeped in dark knowledge, braced himself against me, his last stand a testament to his refusal to relinquish his soul. I could feel the undercurrent of power emanating from him, a maelstrom of occult energy that he wielded with desperate ferocity. His eyes, alight with a defiant flame, met mine, holding a depth of understanding that spoke of forbidden secrets and dark pacts. "Your time's up, Jonathan," I declared, my voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of resolve. The very fabric of the room seemed to respond to my presence, the shadows lengthening, the flickering candlelight casting grotesque patterns on the walls. He sneered, a twist of his lips that belied his fear. "I won't go quietly, Collector." He spat out the title like a curse. With a swift incantation, he hurled a bolt of eldritch energy towards me. I dodged, feeling the heat of the energy as it whizzed past me, singeing the air. The room seemed to close in, the space between us a battleground of wills and power. I had been in tough collections before, but this was different. Jonathan wasn't just resisting, he was fighting back with a skill that spoke of years spent delving into the arcane. The dance of our battle was erratic and dangerous. Each of his attacks was met with my parries, a duel that was as much about wits and endurance as it was about strength. I could sense his desperation, a potent mix of fear and determination. But there was something else, a hint of madness that perhaps came from delving too deep into things no man should know. The power I had been granted by Asmodeus surged within me, responding to the challenge. I unleashed a counterspell, a weaving of dark energy that clashed with Jonathan's defenses. The room erupted in a cacophony of supernatural forces. Books and artifacts were swept up in the maelstrom, the air a tempest of dueling magics. Jonathan's chants grew more fervent, his gestures wild and uncontrolled as he sought to overpower me. Our battle raged on, neither of us yielding, the room a vortex of unleashed powers. I could feel the strain of the confrontation, the physical and mental toll it was taking. This was more than a struggle for a soul. It was a battle of beliefs, of paths chosen and fates entwined. Jonathan's resolve and his mastery of the dark arts meant that I had to regroup and rethink my strategy. The final outcome of this struggle remained uncertain. Exhausted, yet determined, I retreated momentarily, stepping back into the shadows. The night outside beckoned, offering a brief respite and a moment to gather my thoughts and strength. Jonathan's heavy breaths were audible in the silence that followed, a sound that promised more conflict to come. The standoff with Jonathan Burke intensified, each passing moment a testament to the perilous nature of my role as a soul collector. Our battleground, a room shrouded in the remnants of his dark practices, seemed to pulsate with an ominous energy, reflecting the ferocity of our conflict. As I cautiously circled Jonathan, I noted the peculiar glint of an artifact clutched tightly in his hand. It was an ancient-looking talisman, its surface etched with symbols that thrummed with a malevolent power. This was no ordinary object. It was imbued with an energy that even I, accustomed to the supernatural, found disconcerting. He's using an artifact to amplify his powers, I realized, a knot of apprehension tightening in my gut. This was not just a battle of spells and wills. It was a fight against an enhanced adversary, armed with a tool of significant occult strength. The air crackled as Jonathan, with a maniacal gleam in his eyes, channeled his energy through the artifact. The room trembled, the walls themselves seeming to groan under the strain of the unleashed power. I could feel the force of his attack before it even materialized, a surge of energy that threatened to overwhelm me. Ducking to the side, I narrowly avoided a blast of dark energy. It struck the wall behind me, leaving a scorch mark as a stark reminder of its lethality. I need to be smarter, anticipate his moves, I thought, recalibrating my strategy on the fly. Drawing upon my own powers, I wove a defensive shield around me, a barrier of shimmering energy to deflect his assaults. Jonathan's attacks grew more frenzied, his chants echoing through the room like the ravings of a madman. The talisman in his grip glowed brighter with each incantation, its power a beacon in the darkened room. I realized then that the key to ending this battle lay in neutralizing that artifact. As long as he wielded it, Jonathan would always have the upper hand. But how to disarm a man so deeply entrenched in his arcane fortress? A plan began to form in my mind, a risky gambit that would require precise timing and no small measure of luck. I feigned a stumble, a momentary lapse that left me seemingly vulnerable. As expected, Jonathan seized the opportunity, directing a concentrated burst of energy towards me. At the last moment, I rolled away, the blast grazing me, sending a searing pain along my side. Ignoring the pain, I lunged towards him, closing the distance in a heartbeat. The surprise in Jonathan's eyes was satisfying, but there was no time to savor it. I reached for the talisman, our hands grappling in a struggle of life and death. The artifact pulsed as if it were alive, its energy a writhing serpent fighting against my grip. Jonathan's chants became desperate, a cacophony of ancient words that filled the room with a foreboding resonance. In a clash of wills, our powers collided, the artifact at the epicenter of our struggle. It felt as though the very room was bending around us, reality distorting under the stress of our battle. The talisman's glow intensified, a blinding beacon in the midst of our storm. Just as it seemed as though the artifact might overpower us both, a crack appeared on its surface. A surge of unrestrained energy burst forth, throwing us apart. I hit the ground hard, the breath knocked out of me, as the artifact shattered into 1,000 pieces. The room fell silent, the aftermath of our clash hanging in the air like a spent storm. Jonathan lay a few feet away, his body still, the source of his amplified power now just a pile of glittering dust. Painfully, I pushed myself up, my body protesting with every movement. As I stood there, catching my breath, I couldn't help but wonder about the origins of the artifact and what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows of this world. With Jonathan's soul ready for collection, I realized that this encounter was more than just a battle. It was a revelation of the complexities and risks that lay in my path as Asmodeus's collector. The road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: my journey was far from over. Lingering in the aftermath of the skirmish with Jonathan, I found myself amidst the ruins of what had been an intense battlefield. The air was still thick with the residue of spent magic, a tangible reminder of the ferocious power that had been unleashed. My body ached from the encounter, each bruise and cut a testament to the perilous nature of my duty. As I surveyed the room, my eyes settled on the shattered remnants of the talisman. Pieces of it lay scattered like a puzzle undone, each fragment glinting ominously in the dim light. I crouched down, carefully examining a shard. The symbols etched into its surface were unfamiliar, yet they resonated with a dark energy that sent a shiver down my spine. What secrets did this artifact hold, I wondered. Jonathan's desperate use of it suggested it was more than just a tool for amplification. There was an aura of forbidden knowledge, a sense of power that was not meant to be wielded by mortal hands. As I collected the pieces, wrapping them carefully in a cloth, I knew that this investigation would lead me down a path riddled with danger and obscurity. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. I tensed, ready for another confrontation, but relaxed as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, her presence exuding a calm authority. She was dressed in a long coat, her eyes sharp and observant. "Eli Turner, I presume," she said, her voice steady and composed. I nodded. "Who are you?" I asked, my guard still up. "My name is Lila," she replied, "and I believe we're on the same trail. The trail of these." She gestured towards the wrapped shards in my hand. Lila explained that she had been tracking the distribution of similar artifacts across the city. Her investigation had led her to Jonathan Burke, only to find that I had reached him first. As she spoke, I sensed no deceit in her words, only a shared curiosity and a hint of something deeper, a personal stake in this hunt. We decided to join forces, albeit tentatively. Lila's knowledge and her connections could provide valuable insights, while my own experiences as a collector offered a unique perspective. As we parted ways, agreeing to share information, a sense of unease settled over me. The shattered artifact was a key, a piece of a puzzle that extended far beyond the scope of my usual collections. Walking back into the night, the city's lights blurred in my vision, each one a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden in its depths. My mind raced with questions. Who was behind the distribution of these artifacts? What was their endgame? And most importantly, how did all of this tie back to my own cursed fate? The streets whispered secrets as I made my way through the city, the weight of the night's revelations heavy on my shoulders. In the wake of my encounter with Jonathan and the mysterious Lila, my mind was awash with questions. The fragments of the shattered artifact lay wrapped in my coat pocket, a constant reminder of the deepening mystery I found myself entangled in. The night air was brisk, each breath a sharp reminder of the reality I faced. It was clear that understanding its origins and purpose was key to unraveling this growing enigma. But such knowledge lay beyond my current reach, hidden in the shadowy depths of a world I was only just beginning to navigate. The decision to seek out other collectors was not an easy one. Our kind, bound by solitary packs and secretive natures, rarely crossed paths, and when we did, it was often as adversaries rather than allies. Yet the circumstances were extraordinary, and the necessity for understanding outweighed the risks. My first encounter was with Marcus, a collector. He dwelled in the older part of the city, where the buildings whispered tales of centuries past. Marcus was known among our kind for his extensive knowledge of the occult, a collector who had walked this earth for more years than most. His abode was an antiquated bookstore, its shelves a maze of ancient tomes and forgotten lore. The bell above the door chimed my arrival, a sound seemingly out of place in the hushed reverence of the place. Marcus emerged from the shadows, his appearance that of a scholarly gentleman, his eyes betraying the weight of years he had witnessed. "Eli Turner," he greeted, his voice a timbre of cautious curiosity. "To what do I owe this unusual visit?" I explained my recent encounter, producing the artifact's fragments. Marcus examined them with an intensity that spoke of his deep understanding. "These are no mere trinkets," he murmured. "They bear the markings of an ancient and dangerous power." Our conversation delved into the realms of arcane knowledge, with Marcus sharing tales of artifacts lost to time, each with the power to alter the very fabric of reality. He spoke of a shadowy group, collectors of such relics, their purpose shrouded in mystery and speculation. The information was both enlightening and disconcerting. The existence of such a group suggested a network operating with intentions unknown, possibly even against the very entities we served. As I left Marcus, the night seemed darker, the shadows deeper. The night had draped the city in its enigmatic shroud as I made my way to the rendezvous point, a place hidden from prying eyes, known only to a select few. Marcus had informed me of a clandestine meeting, a gathering of collectors to discuss the emerging threat posed by the artifacts. My mind churned with thoughts, a maelstrom of anticipation and apprehension. The concept of a collective of collectors was alien to me. We were solitary by nature, shadows flitting in the dark. Yet, here I was, about to breach that unwritten code. The location was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, far removed from the watchful eyes of the city. As I approached, the building loomed like a dormant behemoth, its windows dark, its structure a silhouette against the starless sky. The air was heavy with the scent of old metal and forgotten endeavors. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a tension that could be sliced with a knife. Figures stood shrouded in the gloom, their identities obscured, yet their presence unmistakable. Each collector was a conduit of otherworldly energy, their auras a tapestry of the powers they wielded and the entities they served. A hushed murmur ran through the group as I entered, my arrival as much a curiosity to them as theirs was to me. We were a gathering of enigmas, each accustomed to being the harbinger of fates, not the collaborators in a cause. Marcus, a figure of quiet authority, nodded at me, an acknowledgement of our newfound alliance. The meeting commenced with an air of solemn gravity. One by one, collectors shared their experiences, tales of encounters with individuals wielding similar artifacts, each account a piece of a larger, more ominous puzzle. The stories varied, but the underlying thread was the same: a surge in power among those we were sent to collect, a pattern that pointed to a deliberate distribution of these dark relics. Discussion turned to speculation, theories about the origins of these artifacts and their purpose. Was it a bid for power from a rival entity? A test from the very forces we served? The theories were as varied as the collectors present, each hypothesis a reflection of our diverse backgrounds and experiences. A map was laid out, locations marked where encounters with the artifacts had occurred. It painted a picture that was hard to ignore, a strategic placement of these relics, as though the city itself were being turned into a chessboard for a game with stakes beyond our comprehension. "We need to unite." Marcus's voice cut through the discourse, silencing the room. "Our individual efforts are commendable, but this threat requires a coordinated approach. Knowledge is our weapon, and together, we wield a formidable arsenal." His words resonated with a truth that I had come to realize since my encounter with Jonathan. The solitary path I had walked was no longer viable in the face of this shadowy adversary. We needed to pool our resources, our knowledge, our powers. The meeting concluded with a reluctant agreement to collaborate, a temporary alliance forged in the face of a common enemy. Contact information was exchanged, strategies briefly discussed, and plans made to reconvene. As we dispersed, the air felt charged with a newfound purpose, a collective resolve that had been absent at the beginning. Stepping out into the night, the cool air felt like a balm to my thoughts. The Council of Collectors, as I had come to think of it, was a development I had not foreseen in my role. The night was unusually silent as I tread the familiar yet foreboding path through the city's underbelly. My mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, swirling around the enigmatic artifact and its origins. The Council of Collectors had dispersed, each to their own corner of the night. But our shared purpose lingered in the air like a solemn vow. The fragments of the artifact, safely tucked away in my pocket, felt like a beacon, drawing me deeper into unknown territories. Marcus had provided me with a lead, a name whispered in hushed tones. Anton Vargas, a dealer in rare and forbidden artifacts. Vargas operated in the shadows, his business veiled in secrecy. Finding him required traversing the more obscure parts of the city, places where the light of day seldom reached and where whispers carried more weight than shouts. As I ventured into these hidden alleys, a sense of unease settled over me, a premonition of impending danger. The location Marcus had given me was an antiquated bookstore, its windows clouded with the dust of neglect. Pushing the door open, the bell above let out a feeble ring, announcing my entrance into a world shrouded in mystery. Inside, the air was thick with the musk of old books and forgotten stories. The dim light barely illuminated the cramped space, casting long shadows across the floor. I approached the counter, behind which sat a man as aged as the tomes that surrounded him. His eyes, sharp and calculating, appraised me with an unsettling intensity. "Anton Vargas?" I inquired, my voice steady despite the man's unnerving gaze. He nodded slowly, a slight curl of his lips suggesting a knowledge of why I was there. "What brings a soul collector to my humble abode?" His voice was a gravelly whisper, each word measured and deliberate. I produced the artifact fragments, laying them carefully on the counter. Vargas's eyes widened ever so slightly, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. "These are dangerous things you meddle with," he murmured, his fingers hovering over the pieces without touching them. "Their origin is old, older than any entity you serve." His words sent a chill down my spine. Vargas proceeded to tell me of the artifact's rumored origins, a tale of a long-forgotten civilization that had mastered the art of binding and channeling dark energies. He spoke of a hidden library, a repository of their forbidden knowledge, lost to time and guarded by shadows. As I listened, the pieces of the puzzle began to form a clearer picture, albeit one that was no less daunting. The distribution of these artifacts was no random occurrence. It was a deliberate act, one that could have consequences far beyond the remit of a mere debt collector. I thanked Vargas and left the bookstore, the night air feeling colder as I stepped outside. The information he provided had opened a new chapter in this unfolding mystery, one that I knew would lead me into perilous territory. As I made my way back through the city, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the usual sounds of the night were conspicuously absent. The sensation of being followed grew stronger with each step, a tangible presence that lurked just beyond my sight. The night wrapped around me like a familiar cloak as I ventured deeper into the unknown. After the unsettling revelations of betrayal within our ranks, a restlessness had taken hold of me. It was a gnawing sensation, the kind that whispered of changes both frightening and necessary. My path had led me here, to the precipice of the demonic realms, a boundary I had never dared to cross until now. The air was thick with a charged energy, a palpable tension that seemed to hum with hidden secrets and power. I stood at the entrance of an ancient site, hidden from the mortal world, a gateway to realms untraveled by those not bound to the supernatural. The decision to venture into these depths was not made lightly. It was born of desperation and a hunger for understanding the true extent of my abilities and the nature of the artifacts. As I crossed the threshold, a shiver ran down my spine. The realm beyond was a landscape of haunting beauty and lurking danger. The sky was a tapestry of swirling colors, hues that had no place in the natural world. The ground beneath my feet was a mosaic of crystalline structures, emitting a faint, ethereal glow. I could feel the presence of demonic entities, their eyes upon me, curious about this intruder in their midst. There was a sense of being tested, judged by standards alien and inscrutable. Every step forward was a challenge, a defiance of the fears that sought to hold me back. In this otherworldly domain, I could sense my powers responding to the ambient energy. It was as if the very air was alive, whispering ancient knowledge into my soul. I felt an awakening, a burgeoning of abilities that lay dormant within me. It was an exhilarating, terrifying sensation, like glimpsing a vast ocean where I had only known a shallow pond. I wandered deeper, drawn by an unseen force. Visions flashed before me, scenes of past collectors, their triumphs and downfalls, each a lesson woven into the fabric of this realm. I saw the rise and fall of powers, the ebb and flow of cosmic battles. The weight of this knowledge was immense, a burden and a gift in equal measure. As I journeyed, I encountered a presence, an entity of immense power. It regarded me with eyes that held the depths of eternity. "You seek understanding, collector," it intoned, its voice a symphony of whispers. "But knowledge comes with a price." The encounter was a crucible, a moment of reckoning. I was offered a choice: to embrace this newfound power, to delve deeper into the forbidden knowledge, or to retreat to the safety of ignorance. The temptation was overwhelming, the allure of power and understanding a siren call to my weary soul. But in that moment of choice, a clarity emerged within me. This power was not just for understanding the artifacts or countering the threats we faced. It was a means to navigate the moral complexities of my existence. The choice was not just about power. It was about who I was becoming in this journey. With a newfound resolve, I embraced the power offered to me. A surge of energy coursed through me, a torrent of knowledge and strength that threatened to overwhelm my senses. I felt my abilities expand, evolve, transcending the limits I had known. The city under the cloak of night felt different now, as if I was seeing it through a new lens. The recent foray into the demonic realm had not only enhanced my powers, but also sharpened my perception of the world around me. I could sense the ebb and flow of energies, the whispers of spirits, and the faint echoes of arcane forces at work. With these newfound abilities, I was more determined than ever to confront the shadowy network distributing the artifacts. My first step was to track down a known location where one of these artifacts was rumored to be exchanged. The information, courtesy of Lila, led me to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place had a desolate aura, its dilapidated structure a stark contrast to the vibrant city center. As I approached, I could feel the thrum of energy, a clear indication that something otherworldly was at play. I readied myself for confrontation, drawing upon the newfound reservoir of power within me. The warehouse was dimly lit, the only light emanating from a series of candles arranged in a precise formation, a ritual site. Figures cloaked in shadow moved about, their movements precise and deliberate. At the center of this activity was the artifact, pulsating with a dark energy that seemed to distort the air around it. With a deep breath, I stepped into the open, my presence immediately drawing the attention of the figures. Their surprise at seeing a collector interrupt their ritual quickly turned to hostility. The first to attack was a burly man, his aura dark and menacing. He lunged at me with a ferocity that would have overwhelmed the old Eli. But now, I was different. I sidestepped his attack with ease, countering with a surge of energy that sent him reeling back. I could feel the power coursing through me, a torrent of strength and arcane knowledge that I wielded with newfound confidence. Each spell I cast, each barrier I erected, was stronger and more effective than ever before. The attackers, realizing they were outmatched, increased their assault, their spells and curses weaving a tapestry of danger. But I was undeterred. With each move, I felt more in tune with the energies around me, using them to my advantage. The battle raged on, a maelstrom of magic and might. I could feel the artifact's influence, its power a beacon that called to the darkness within me. But I held firm, my resolve unwavering. As the final attacker fell, the warehouse fell into silence, broken only by the faint crackling of the ritual candles. I approached the artifact, its energy pulsating like a malevolent heart. With a focused effort, I contained its power, rendering it inert. The sense of triumph was palpable, a victory, not just in battle, but over the temptation of unchecked power. The aftermath of the battle left the warehouse in a state of eerie calm, the echoes of the conflict still reverberating in its hollowed halls. I stood amidst the silence, my breaths coming out in slow, measured puffs, visible in the cold air of the night. The subdued glow from the now inert artifact cast long shadows around me, mirroring the tumultuous thoughts that clouded my mind. In the wake of the confrontation, I found myself at a crossroads, both literally and metaphorically. The path I had walked as a collector for Asmodeus had always been one of solitude and singular purpose. But now, with the acquisition of these new, profound powers and the recent alliance with other collectors, my journey had taken an unexpected turn. As I walked out of the warehouse, the cool night air felt refreshing against my skin, a stark contrast to the heated energy of the battle. The city, with its myriad lights and sounds, seemed to be in a state of slumber, unaware of the supernatural tides shifting beneath its surface. Reflecting on the events that had unfolded, I recognized that my role had evolved. No longer was I merely a harvester of souls, a solitary figure in the shadows. I had become a guardian of sorts, a protector against the misuse of powers that could tip the scales in ways unimaginable. The weight of this responsibility was not lost on me. With great power came great risk, the danger of becoming what I fought against. The balance I strove to maintain was a delicate one, easily upset by the misuse of the abilities I now wielded. As I wandered through the city's labyrinthine streets, my thoughts turned to Asmodeus. My allegiance to the Demon Lord was a pact that I could not simply forsake. Yet, with these new powers, I felt a growing sense of autonomy, a burgeoning desire to forge my own path within the boundaries of my servitude. The city seemed to whisper to me, its voices a blend of the mundane and the arcane. In these whispers, I heard the echoes of my own doubts and convictions. The journey ahead would require careful navigation, a balancing act between loyalty and independence. As dawn approached, painting the horizon with hues of orange and purple, I made my decision. I would continue to serve Asmodeus, to fulfill my duties as a collector, but on my terms. I would use my newfound powers not just for collection, but to seek out truths, to protect the balance that was so crucial to both the mortal and supernatural realms. The night had passed, and with it, a chapter of my life had drawn to a close. But a new chapter was beginning, one filled with possibilities and uncertainties. As the first light of day touched the city, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was Eli Turner, collector of souls, but I was also something more, a seeker of balance in a world teetering on the edge of darkness and light.